The inspection, the autumn wind carried the scent of ash and metal through the conquered city of New Terran, where towering spires of alien architecture pierced the gray sky like crystalline daggers. Queen Zephyra of the Virelli Empire stepped from her transport, her iridescent armor catching the pale sunlight as she surveyed the military compound before her. Her silver skin held an otherworldly luminescence, and her elongated features spoke of a species that had evolved beyond human comprehension. Captain. Morok bowed deeply, his own armor gleaming with the insignia of the Royal Guard. Your Majesty, the 3rd Battalion awaits your inspection. Zephyra nodded curtly, her violet eyes scanning the perfectly aligned rows of soldiers. Each warrior stood motionless, their weapons polished to mirror brightness, their posture reflecting years of discipline. She had built this empire through strength and order, conquering 17 worlds in the past decade. Earth had been just another prize in her collection. As she moved between the ranks, her keen gaze evaluated each soldier with the precision of a master strategist. The Virelli had learned long ago that victory came not from brutality, but from absolute control and unwavering loyalty. Her people respected strength above all else, and she had never shown weakness. The inspection proceeded flawlessly until she reached the eastern edge of the compound, where a flight of stone steps led to an abandoned human structure. There, hunched against the cold granite, sat a figure that shouldn't have been there at all. The man was clearly human, his clothes little more than rags, his dark hair unkempt and falling across his face. His name was Davin, though none present knew it. He had once been a teacher, a scholar who had lost everything when the Virelli arrived 3 years ago. Now he survived on scraps and the occasional coin from passers-by who still possessed compassion. Several soldiers moved to remove him, but Zephyra raised her hand, stopping them mid-stride. Something about the beggar intrigued her. Perhaps it was the way he didn't flinch or cower when he noticed her approach. His brown eyes, though weary, held a depth that spoke of intelligence rather than defeat. You, she said, her voice carrying the melodic accent of her species. Look at me. Davin raised his head slowly, meeting her gaze without fear. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Zephyra felt a resonance, a vibration in the mental frequencies that her people had lost generations ago. This human carried something her own species had bred out of themselves in their pursuit of technological advancement. She stepped closer, ignoring the murmurs of her soldiers. What is your name? Davin, he replied simply, his voice hoarse from disuse. The queen studied him for a long moment, her enhanced senses detecting something remarkable. This human possessed dormant psychic abilities, traces of an evolutionary path that humans had barely begun to explore. Her people had once possessed such gifts, but had abandoned them for more tangible forms of power. Without warning, she knelt before him, causing gasps from the assembled soldiers. No Virelli queen had ever knelt before a human. Her hand reached, pale fingers touching his forehead with surprising gentleness. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Davin's world exploded into light and sensation as centuries of suppressed human potential awakened within him. Visions flooded his mind, memories that weren't his own, knowledge that transcended his species' current understanding. He saw the rise and fall of civilizations, the intricate webs of consciousness that connected all living beings. When the light faded, he was no longer the same man. His eyes now held flecks of the same violet that marked Zephyra's gaze, and his presence carried an authority that hadn't existed moments before. Rise, Zephyra commanded, her voice softer now. You are no longer what you were. Davin stood, his movements fluid and confident. The change was visible to everyone present, and the soldiers who had dismissed him as worthless now stepped back in recognition of something profound. Your Majesty, Captain Morok ventured carefully. What have? You done? Zephyra smiled, a rare expression that transformed her austere features. "I have found what we lost long ago. This human will serve as my advisor, my seer. He will help bridge the gap between our peoples." The implications rippled through the crowd like electricity. Never before had a human been elevated to such a position within the Varelli hierarchy. But as Davin stood there, his transformation complete, even the most skeptical soldiers could sense that something momentous had occurred. The inspection was over, but a new chapter had begun. The awakening, the royal palace rose like a crystalline mountain from the heart of the city, its translucent walls refracting light into rainbow patterns that danced across the polished floors. Davin walked through corridors that seemed to pulse with their own inner luminescence, still struggling to comprehend the magnitude of his transformation. Elder Nexus, the court's chief advisor, glided beside him on legs that seemed to barely touch the ground. The ancient Varelli's features were more pronounced than Zephyrus, his silver skin bearing the intricate patterns that marked his advanced age and wisdom. "The awakening is never easy," Nexus explained, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Your species possesses capabilities that mine abandoned in our pursuit of technological supremacy. We became masters of matter, but lost touch with the realm of consciousness." Davin paused before a vast window that offered a view of the city below. Humans and Varelli moved through the streets in an uneasy coexistence, the conquered learning to live alongside their conquerors. "Why me? Why now?" "Her Majesty sees something in you that even she doesn't fully understand," Nexus replied. "The Queen has ruled through strength and intellect, but she has never experienced the connection you now share with her." The connection. Davin felt it constantly now, a subtle awareness of Zephyr's presence that seemed to transcend physical distance. He could sense her emotions, her thoughts, though he wasn't sure if she was aware of the link that had formed between them. "Is this normal?" he asked, touching his temple where strange new sensations continued to emerge. "There is nothing normal about any of this," Nexus admitted. "The last time a human and Varelli shared such a bond was in the ancient texts' stories we thought were merely myths." As if summoned by their conversation, Zephira appeared at the end of the corridor. She had changed from her battle armor into flowing robes that seemed to shift color with each step. Her hair, long and silver like spun moonlight, moved with an otherworldly grace. "Elder Nexus," she said, inclining her head respectfully, "I trust you have been educating our newest advisor?" "Indeed, Your Majesty, though I suspect he may soon surpass my own understanding of these matters." Zephira's eyes met Davin's, and again he felt that electric connection spark between them. "Walk with me," she said, extending her hand. The moment their fingers touched, the world around them seemed to shift. They were no longer standing in the palace corridor, but in a vast mental landscape where thoughts took physical form and emotions painted the sky in brilliant hues. "This is the realm of the mind," Zephira explained, her voice echoing strangely. "In the ethereal space. My people lost access to this place long ago, but you have brought it back to me." They walked together through memories made manifest, seeing glimpses of both their lives intertwined in impossible ways. Davin saw Zephira as a young princess struggling with the weight of expectations. She saw him as a teacher, passionate about knowledge and hungry for understanding. "I have conquered worlds," she said softly, "but I have never felt this. What is this?" Davin asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Something my people would consider weakness," she replied, "but something your people would call love." Admission hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. They were from different worlds, different species, different ways of being. Yet in this moment, in this space between consciousness and reality, such differences seemed meaningless. "Your court will never accept it," Davin said, his practical mind asserting itself even in this dreamlike realm. "Perhaps not," Zephyra agreed. But they will accept you. Your abilities are already growing stronger. Soon you will be able to see things that no Virelli can perceive. Advise me in ways that no traditional counselor could manage. As they spoke, the mental landscape began to shift and change around them. Davin found that he could influence the environment with his thoughts, creating structures and altering the flow of the ethereal rivers that ran through the space. How is this possible? He wondered aloud. Your species stands at an evolutionary crossroads, Zephyra explained. Most humans will never develop these abilities, but a few, like you, carry the genetic markers that allow for such expansion of consciousness. When they returned to the physical world, hours had passed, though it had felt like minutes. The palace corridors were dimmer now, lit by the soft bioluminescence that the Virelli preferred during their equivalent of evening. Tomorrow, you will address the council, Zephyra informed him. They will test your abilities and determine your fitness for the role I have given you. And if I fail? She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. You won't fail. I have seen your potential, and it exceeds anything my people have achieved in centuries. As she walked away, her robes trailing behind her like liquid starlight, Davin realized that his life had become something beyond his wildest imagination. He was no longer just a human surviving in an alien world. He was becoming something new, something that might bridge the gap between two species that had never truly understood each other. The awakening was complete, but the real test was yet to come. The council chamber stretched before Davin like a crystalline amphitheater, its walls carved from a single massive gem that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. 12 members of the Virelli High Council sat in elevated seats, their silver faces impassive as they studied the human who had been thrust into their midst. General Corvin, the Empire's military commander, leaned forward with barely concealed hostility. His scarred features spoke of countless battles, and his amber eyes glowed with suspicion. Your Majesty, this human has been among us for mere days. How can you trust him with matters of state? Zephyra stood beside her throne, her presence commanding absolute attention. Because he can see what we cannot, General. Watch. She gestured toward a sealed container in the center of the chamber. Within it lay a collection of objects from various conquered worlds, each one significant in ways that traditional analysis couldn't reveal. Davin stepped forward, his enhanced senses reaching out to probe the contents. The abilities that had awakened within him allowed him to perceive the emotional and historical resonance of objects, seeing their significance in ways that transcended mere physical examination. The blue crystal, he said, his voice carrying new authority, was used in religious ceremonies on Kepler 7. It still holds the prayers of the faithful who died defending their world. The metal fragment carries the last thoughts of a warrior who chose honor over survival. The organic sample, it's not from any world you've conquered. It's from somewhere else entirely. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. The sealed container had been prepared by Elder Mexis himself, and no one present should have been able to identify its contents so precisely. Impressive, admitted Counselor Vex, her serpentine features showing the first hint of approval. But perception is one thing. Practical application is another. Over the following weeks, Davin proved his worth repeatedly. He identified potential rebellion leaders before they could act, predicted resource shortages that traditional analysis had missed, and provided insights into human psychology that helped the Virelli govern their conquered territories more effectively. But it was his growing relationship with Zephyra that caused the most concern among the council members. They spend too much time together, General Corvin complained during a private meeting. The Queen has always been focused solely on the Empire's expansion. Now she seems distracted. Perhaps she's simply utilizing a valuable resource, Counselor. Vex suggested, though her tone suggested she didn't believe her own words. The truth was more complex and more dangerous than any of them realized. Zephyra and Davin had developed a connection that went beyond mere attraction or political alliance. Their mental bond had deepened, allowing them to share thoughts and emotions in ways that both species had previously thought impossible. In the privacy of the royal gardens, beneath the light of 3 alien moons, Zephyra and Davin found moments of peace away from the political pressures of the court. "My people are beginning to question my judgment," Zephyra said, her voice carrying a weariness that she never showed in public. "And my people see me as a traitor," Davin replied, settling beside her on a bench carved from living coral that glowed softly in the darkness. "Are you?" she asked, turning to face him. "A traitor to your species?" Davin considered the question carefully. "I don't know anymore. I want to help both our peoples find a way to coexist, but I'm not sure that's possible." "It has to be possible," Zephyra said firmly. "The alternative is endless conflict." Their hands found each other in the darkness, fingers intertwining despite the differences in their physiology. The touch sent waves of sensation through both of them, the mental connection amplifying every emotion. "I never expected this," Zephyra admitted. "In all my planning for conquest, I never considered that I might find something worth more than victory." "What happens now?" Davin asked. "Your council grows more suspicious by the day, and the human resistance movements are gaining strength." "Then we prove that cooperation is stronger than conflict," Zephyra said, her voice filled with determination. "Tomorrow, we announce a new initiative. Joint councils, shared governance, a true partnership between our species. The General will never accept it. The General will accept it or face the consequences of treason," Zephyra replied, steel entering her voice. "I am still the Queen, and my word is law." But even as she spoke, both of them sensed the approaching storm. Change was never easy, and the changes they proposed would challenge every assumption both species held about themselves and each other. As they sat together in the alien starlight, neither Zephyra nor Davin could shake the feeling that their greatest challenges lay ahead. The bond between them had grown strong, but soon it would be tested in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The council chamber would soon become a battleground, and the fate of 2 worlds would hang in the balance. The betrayal, the emergency session convened at dawn, the council chamber filled with an electric tension that seemed to make the crystalline walls vibrate. General Corvin stood at the center of the room, his battle-scarred armor gleaming as he addressed the assembled members. "Fellow counselors," he began, his voice carrying the authority of countless military campaigns, "we face a crisis that threatens the very foundation of our empire." Zephyra entered the chamber with Davin at her side, immediately sensing the hostile atmosphere. The Queen's violet eyes swept across the faces of her advisors, noting which ones avoided her gaze. "General Corvin," she said coldly, "you called this session without my authorization. Explain yourself." "Your Majesty," Corvin replied, his tone respectful but firm. "We have received disturbing intelligence from our networks on Earth. The human resistance has been growing stronger, and they have found an unexpected ally." He gestured toward a holographic display that materialized in the center of the chamber. The image showed a tall, distinguished human with graying hair and intense blue eyes. Ambassador Thane had once been Earth's chief diplomat before the conquest, and had since become a leader in the underground resistance movement. "Ambassador Thane has been in contact with several members of our own military," Corvin continued. "He promises them positions of power in a new government if they help him eliminate what he calls the alien queen's pet human." Davin felt the words hit him like physical blows. He had known that his position would make him enemies, but the extent of the conspiracy was shocking. "Are you suggesting that members of my own council are committing treason?" Zephyra asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "I am suggesting that your relationship with this human has compromised your judgment," Corvin replied. "The Empire was built on strength and order, not on romantic entanglements with conquered species." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Several council members shifted uncomfortably, while others nodded in agreement with the general's words. "You forget yourself, General," Zephyra said, rising from her throne. "I decide what is best for this empire." "Do you?" Corvin challenged. "Then explain why our intelligence networks have detected communication between your advisor and known resistance cells." Davin felt the blood drain from his face. "That's impossible. I've had no contact with any resistance groups." "Haven't you?" Corvin produced another holographic display, this one showing encrypted communications that appeared to bear Davin's identification codes. These messages detailed troop movements, security protocols, and strategic weaknesses. Information that only someone with your access level could provide. The evidence was damning, and Davin realized with growing horror that he had been expertly framed. The communications were sophisticated forgeries, but they would be nearly impossible to disprove without extensive investigation. "This is fabricated," Davin said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Someone is trying to destroy the alliance between our species. Someone is trying to save our species from contamination." Corvin snapped. "Your Majesty, I formally request that this human be arrested for treason and conspiracy." Several council members voiced their agreement, while others remained silent. Zephyra looked around the chamber, seeing the doubt and suspicion in the faces of advisors who had once trusted her completely. "The evidence is compelling," admitted Counselor Vex, her serpentine features showing genuine regret. "Your Majesty, perhaps it would be best to conduct a thorough investigation." "No," Zephyra said firmly. "I know Davin's heart. He would never betray us." "Your Majesty," Elder Nexus spoke for the first time, his ancient voice filled with sadness. "Even if the advisor is innocent, the appearance of impropriety damages the Empire's stability. Perhaps a temporary separation would be wise." The suggestion hit Davin like a physical blow. He understood the political necessity, but the thought of being separated from Zephyra filled him with despair. "I will not abandon those who serve me faithfully," Zephyra declared. "If you cannot trust my judgment, then perhaps you should find another ruler." The threat of abdication sent shockwaves through the chamber. No one had expected the Queen to go so far to protect her human advisor. "Your Majesty," Corvin said, pressing his advantage, "your duty is to the Empire, not to personal feelings. If you truly care about your people, you will make the difficult choice." Before Zephyra could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. The chamber's security screens activated, showing scenes of chaos in the city below. Human resistance fighters were attacking Virelli installations, while alien military units responded with overwhelming force. "It's begun," Corvin said grimly. "The resistance has launched a coordinated assault. They're using the intelligence provided by your advisor." Davin watched in horror as the city burned. Whether he was guilty or innocent, the result was the same. His presence had become a catalyst for the very conflict he had hoped to prevent. "I have to go," he said quietly to Zephyra. "My staying here will only make things worse." "No," she replied fiercely. "We face this together." "Look around you," Davin said, gesturing to the hostile faces of the council members. "Your own people no longer trust you because of me. How can we build a bridge between our species when I've become a wedge between you and your advisors?" The truth of his words was undeniable. Zephyra's eyes filled with tears that she refused to shed in public. "This is not over," she whispered to him. "I will find the truth. I know you will," Davin replied. "But until then, I have to disappear." As security forces surrounded him, Davin submitted to arrest without resistance. The look of anguish on Zephyra's face was almost too much to bear. But he knew that his sacrifice was necessary to preserve any hope of future peace. The betrayal was complete, but the real question remained. Who was the true traitor, and what did they hope to gain from the destruction of the fragile alliance between two worlds? The Unity 3 months had passed since Davin's arrest, and the city bore the scars of the conflict that had torn through its streets. In the depths of the palace's security complex, Davin sat in a cell that was more like a comfortable apartment. Studying the patterns of light that filtered through the crystalline walls, he had used his time in confinement to deepen his understanding of the mental abilities that Sephira had awakened within him. The separation from her had been agonizing, but it had also forced him to develop his powers independently. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside his cell, and Davin looked up to see Sephira approaching. She looked tired, her silver skin lacking its usual luminescence, but her violet eyes burned with determination. "I have found the truth," she said without preamble as the cell door dissolved at her touch. "General Corvin?" Davin asked, though he had already sensed the answer through there. Mental connection, indeed. The communications were forged using classified encryption keys that only a few people possessed. The general had been working with Ambassador Thane for months, planning to overthrow me and establish a more traditional military government. Where is he now? Facing charges of treason before the full council, Sephira replied. But that's not why I'm here. I need your help, Davin. The resistance has grown stronger, and they're planning something that could destroy both our species. They made their way through the palace corridors, passing Virelli guards who bowed respectfully to their queen. The months of investigation had vindicated Davin in the eyes of most council members, though some still harbored suspicions. In the war room, Elder Nexus and the remaining loyal council members had gathered around a holographic display showing the city and surrounding territories. Red markers indicated resistance strongholds, while blue dots represented Virelli military positions. "The intelligence we gathered from Corvin's communications is disturbing," Nexus explained. "Ambassador Thane has obtained weapons that could level the entire city. He plans to use them regardless of human casualties." "He's lost his mind," Davin said, studying the tactical display. "Destroying the city would accomplish nothing but mutual annihilation." "Unless that's exactly what he wants," Sephira said grimly. "Some humans would rather die than live under alien rule. And some would rather see both species destroyed than accept cooperation," Davin added. "What's the plan?" "We need to reach Thane before he can activate the weapons," Sephira explained. "But our military approach has only strengthened his resolve. He needs to hear from someone he trusts." "You want me to negotiate with him?" "I want you to show him what we've achieved together. The mental bond between us, the advances in understanding, the potential for true cooperation. If he can see that unity is possible, perhaps he'll stand down." The mission was dangerous, requiring them to enter resistance territory without military support. But Davin's abilities had grown strong enough to shield them from detection, and Zephira's diplomatic skills might be enough to prevent bloodshed. They found Thane in an abandoned school building, surrounded by the remnants of human civilization. The ambassador looked older than his years, his face marked by the strain of leading a hopeless rebellion. "The Queen's pet human," Thane said bitterly when he saw Davin approach. "Come to betray your own species again? I've come to show you another way," Davin replied calmly. "We don't have to destroy each other. Look around you." Thane gestured to the ruins of the classroom. "This is what your cooperation has achieved. Our children learn alien languages while their own culture dies." "Culture evolves," Sephira said, stepping forward. "It doesn't have to die." "Easy words from a conqueror," Thane sneered. "But I've seen the future you offer. Humanity as servants to an alien empire." "No," Davin said, and suddenly the room filled with a warm, golden light. Humanity as partners in something greater. The light was the manifestation of the mental bond between Davin and Zephyra, a visible representation of the connection that had grown between them. It pulsed with warmth and hope, showing everyone present the potential for understanding that existed between the two species. "This is what we've learned," Davin continued, his voice carrying new authority. "Our species aren't enemies. We're different expressions of the same underlying consciousness. We can share knowledge, culture, and experience without losing what makes us unique." "It's an illusion," Thane said, but his voice lacked conviction. The golden light seemed to touch something deep within him, memories of a time when he had believed in cooperation and diplomacy. "It's a beginning," Zephyra said gently. "Ambassador, you were Earth's greatest diplomat. You understand better than anyone that negotiation is stronger than destruction." The weapons Thane had prepared remained unused as the three of them talked through the night. By dawn, they had reached an agreement that would reshape both civilizations. The joint council that Zephyra had proposed months earlier finally came into existence, with representatives from both species working together to address the challenges of their shared world. Davin and Zephyra's bond became the foundation for a new form of government that honored both human creativity and Virali efficiency. Years later, as they stood together on the balcony of the palace they now shared, watching human and Virali children play together in the gardens below, Davin reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "Do you ever regret it?" Zephyra asked, her hand finding his as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "Which part?" Davin replied with a smile. "Being transformed by an alien queen, accused of treason, or falling in love with someone from another." "World? All of it," she said, laughing softly. "Not for a moment," he answered, pulling her closer. "We've proven that understanding is stronger than conquest, that love can bridge any gap, and that unity doesn't require uniformity." Stretched before them, filled with challenges and opportunities that neither species could have imagined alone. But together, they had created something new, something that honored both their differences and their shared potential. The Seer's awakening had become the foundation for a new age of cooperation, and the bond between a queen and a beggar had shown two worlds that even the greatest barriers could be overcome through understanding, compassion, and love.